I want to ask you, staying on the Kingsley Senior High School, staff and the scheduling as far as your journey there. Staying on that topic, like I say, for me, I was there my ninth grade year, my 10th grade year, and 11th grade year from '05 to '07. Like I said, heard nothing but great things about you. But when I was there, it wasn't any merging as far as C. Murray and Kingsley students together, as far as athletes. So, what was it like for you and your staff? Dealing with the fact that the school is merging, and how did you guys manage rosters, depth charts, playing time? Who's going to be our starting quarterback? Who's going to be our running back? Like, what if you got a running back at C. Murray that was doing his thing, but you got one here at Kingsley that was doing their thing? How do you like manage all that, man? It sounds
Well,
hard.
you know, and I'll say this, like being from C.E. Murray and coming over, I wanted to make sure that every guy felt like, again, I was there to help them achieve their dreams, and there was no set depth chart, no set anything coming in. It was, you got to compete for your job. And again, as long as you trust that we're there to help you achieve your dreams, we'll do anything we can in our power to help you. And so we didn't have a whole lot of issues with, depth charts or personnel or anything. Also, with the merger, a lot of our C. Murray athletes, for whatever reason, a lot of them, didn't make the transition over. There was very few that made the transition over to Kingstree Senior High.
Why didn't they transition?
Well, you know, according to their parents and others, they just didn't feel comfortable, sending them to
Okay.
school over in
Yeah.
Kingstree, obviously. So, it was, our team is like 85% Kingstree, and the rest from C. Murray. So there's way more Kingstree guys on the team than there are C. Murray guys. You can count them on one hand of how many C.
Right.
Murray are on the team. So that really wasn't an issue at all, knowing that, like I said, the majority of them were from Kingstree as well. But we made sure it wasn't an issue by, again, you got to compete for this job. We're going to take whoever's the best. We're going to put them on the field. And they know that because we had summer workouts and everything leading up to it where we're making them compete, pretty much every day. And then, again, we always schedule a tough preseason, even in scrimmages. We'll scrimmage Andrews. We'll scrimmage Johnsonville. We'll scrimmage, basically anybody who wants to scrimmage us. And give us opportunity to properly evaluate. We scrimmaged May River down in Beaufort at the Lake City Jamboree, this season. And that was a great test because that showed us a lot of our weaknesses. They were one of the better teams in 4A this year, won 10 games in 4A. And, they ran the ball down our throats in that Jamboree. Like, we couldn't stop them. So that helped us. All right, this is who we need. We need to change some guys up. We need to change some things up to get ready for our next game. Because, like I said, May River handed it to us in that Jamboree. And that was good. That's exactly what you want. You don't want to go in blind and not know your weaknesses and strengths. And we were able to find them out pretty quickly with that Jamboree. And that's what I always want to do is, like I said, try to schedule the hardest teams possible. And it's good for our kids because it gets them more exposure when you're playing, those teams that are up a level, where
Yeah.
college recruiters, when they come in, they can't say, oh, he only played 2A teams or he only played,
Yeah.
1A teams. Nope, we're going
Right.
to go play 4A. We're going to play 5A teams. Whoever wants to play us, especially in that preseason, we're going to go play to get them exposure. And like I said, we want to find out, just how good we are.
Oh
And
yeah.
that helps us when we get into region play. I know a lot of
Right.
guys think differently. They want to pad their schedule, pad their amount of wins, play a bunch of nobodies in the preseason.
Yeah.
And I've never been a fan of that. One, like I said, it doesn't help your kids get recruited, for one. And then two, you're giving your team a false sense of reality when they go face harder teams.
Exactly. Exactly, man. Great breakdown, coach, man. Like I say, you Doing a great job. Like I said, I've heard nothing but great things about you, man. And thank you for what you have done for King Street Senior High School and C. Murray High School. And I know you're going to go on to do bigger and better things wherever you choose. But like I said, I heard nothing but great things about you. So keep up the great work. Um, let's stay on your coaching status right now. Are you pretty much like a free agent? You're weighing
Yeah, pretty
options.
much.
You're spending
I'm
time.
trying to
Okay.
decide what's best for the family, where we want to be.
Okay.
I love King Street. I love the kids at King Street, and they know that. It's just, certain things we can't go through again that it looks like we're going to be headed down that same path. So
Well,
I got to make decisions that are best for the family and try to find a place that is going to allow me to do that. And I'm enjoying my spring off. We've got some social media things we're doing. We're able to do these podcasts and
nice.
able to do some spotlights on guys that we cover on social media and help them get recruited.
Great.
So that's been beneficial. I've had a lot of guys thank me for doing that for them. That's important. I got a huge Rolodex of college coaches and college contacts. A guy I didn't mention that I should have is Coach Maurice Drayton at the Citadel. He's the reason I got into coaching at the Citadel. He was
Okay.
my teammate at the Citadel. He got on first, was hired by Ellis Johnson. Oh, before that, he was hired by Don Powers, who was my coach. Then he got on with Ellis Johnson, who became the head coach. And when I was coaching at my high school, Lynn Classical, he called me up
Mhm.
one day and said, "Would you be interested in coming to coach in college?" And I said, "Sure." And sure enough, he got me the job. I was on the next plane down to South Carolina again to go
Yeah.
coach college, and spent, like I said, 3 years there coaching college on that staff, and that helped me build a Rolodex of guys who are in the college profession. So Coach Drayton's a big reason for me even being here in South Carolina and having that big Rolodex of college coaches.
All right. So, Coach, what would be your message to any player that could possibly be playing for you in the future, or may want to, be part of your services that you and your team is doing, as far as making sure kids get, recruited and get known, from different colleges, D1, D2, D3. If there's a student athlete that's listening right now that really wants to get in contact with you, what would be your advice to them, and like, what would you tell them?
Yeah, they can hit me up on any of the social media platforms that I'm on. I'm on every one of them, and I'll be glad to help anyone that's out there. The main thing is you got to be working every day. You got to be doing something every day, getting exposure every day. Like I tell my guys all the time, you should be posting a workout at least once a week on social media. That's what social media is for, is to get exposure. So you should be posting yourself working out at whatever you want to be in college, whether that's, offensive position or defense position, sometimes both. But you want to be posting those workouts each day, and you want to be, grinding every day too, trying to better yourself every day, whether that's in the weight room or whether that's on the field doing agility drills, speed drills, something to get better every day at your sport. And, but at the same time, they got to realize that everything's about exposure these days. Like, it's not like it was even 5 years ago. You have got to stay in contact with the other world out there outside of your area. So if you're in the King Street area, or you're in the Andrews area, you're in the Manning area, you got to get even further out than that. You got to, almost get national with yourself, exposure wise. And you should be, like I said, putting that post out weekly. At the same time, you need to be hitting up these national combines and national camps, whether it's VTO, who just had a camp in Charlotte, whether it's the Carolina coaches combines, who just finished up. They had their last one in Spartanburg the other day, all the way to the individual college camps where you're going to get exposure and expose yourself also to what's out there. And I suggest, again, when you do that, don't just go to Carolina and Clemson. You better be going to every level and out of state as well. Carolina and Clemson, can only take about These days, they're only going to sign probably about 16 guys total in state per year. So, you're really limited in yourself if you just go to Carolina, Clemson. So make sure you're hitting the Coastals, you're hitting the Georgia Southerns, the Appalachian States, the Mercers, the Citadels, all of them, Wofford Furman, all the way up to James Madison in Virginia and Liberty in Virginia. You really need to make sure you're broadening your horizons that way too, to get as much exposure, because it's all about exposure. So I tell every kid that ask me that question, how do I get recruited? It's all about exposure, because you got to stay in the minds of all these recruiters. And now every school has a general manager now as well. So they're kind of set up like pro teams now. So you got to definitely stay in the loop constantly, because you never know. Might be the general manager who recommends you, could be the director of player personnel who recommends you, or might be one of the individual coaches. But if you stay in the loop all the time and you're constantly putting out content that's, impressive to them, you're eventually going to get picked up by somebody.
What's your take on everything you said? Because I'm pretty sure there's a possibility that it can happen, because it's already happening now. A kid that's doing everything that you said do, right? But what if they got the NIL knocking? You got agents knocking. How could a student athlete maintain what you're saying, as far as posting that workout a day, staying at these combines, getting in these camps, but then again, they got NILs, kind of could be a distraction. How could a student athlete manage that?
Well, you got to have good parents, right? That's not going to let some NIL agent take advantage of you or advise you wrong.
Right.
And you got to have good role models too that will do the same thing too, and be like, hey, I know you're getting NIL money right now, but you got to be grinding still, because again, there's always a step up. So even if you get NIL money, that money disappears if you're not good when you get to college. So that's what the people out there have to understand, is that as quick as the money comes, it goes even faster. So, if you're not performing, they're going to cut you the next year. That's how college is. It's no longer, when I went to college, we had 4-year scholarships where, you basically had to, do something extremely bad to get kicked off the team to lose your scholarship. These days, every year you're evaluated. So they'll sit down with the team as soon as the season ends, and they're going to have player coach meetings, and they're going to cut you, like, if you're not good. It's no longer you're guaranteed 4 years. You're only guaranteed basically 6 months now. And that's the bad part about NIL and the portal, is that's it. So there's no more room for, oh, coach, don't worry, next year I'll be better. That doesn't happen anymore. Like, they don't give you time anymore, because they can't either. Their jobs are on the line quicker than it used to be as well. So they're going to cut you. So if you're not ready, you're not prepared, you can't afford bad months, none of that can happen. So you got to stay on the grind even when you get NIL money. So when you get there, you don't get cut 6 months later.
Great advice, man. Great advice. So Cole, what's your advice as far as anyone that's interested in getting into coaching, at a young age, or maybe, at an old age, like anyone that really want to kind of fall in your shadow, they hear this interview and they're like, man, coach really did it, from playing days to coaching. What would be your advice on anyone that's getting into it or thinking about getting into it?
Hit up your, local, wherever you want to start, whether it's local high school coach, local college coach, and, even if you got to volunteer the first year, ask for any position possible. Because heck, my first job, I don't mind telling anybody, obviously I was a high school coach assistant for 2 years, but my first job at the Citadel, I was a graduate assistant making $16,000 for the year.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
And, you had to really scrape by. And again, I spent 3 years there. Pay got increased each year, but my first job was 16,000. Like, it was nothing. It was, you want to be here or not, and you got to do all. Any job they told you to do, you had to do, and it was a 24-hour job as well. So you got to be willing to put in more time than anybody starting out and try to learn as many positions as possible. That was a thing that a guy, John Zernhelt, who I worked with, he ended up being our head coach. He was our O-line coach when I was coaching at the Citadel, and he ended up he was our head coach for a year, and then he went to the New York Jets to be the tight ends coach for the New York Jets. But he told me when I was at the Citadel, he called me Smitty, you got to do more than just defense, because up until that point, I was just a defensive coach.
Yeah.
He said, so I'm going to switch you over to offense. You're going to learn offensive line. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. But you got to learn more than one position. And
Right.
I think that's important too. A lot of guys just get caught up in one position right away. To me, if I'm a young coach out there, learn as many positions starting out as possible, the offense and defense. Then you can hone in on what you truly want to do after that. But for your first 3 years, kind of bounce around and find out, what it's like to be an O-line coach, what it's like to be a defensive backs coach, what it's like to be a, wide receivers coach or a quarterbacks coach. Do anything and everything those first couple years to give you a broader view of what's going on. Then hone in on, if I just want to be a wideout coach or I want to be an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, etc. Then you make that jump. But again, you got to put your time in. A lot of young guys get frustrated. It's just natural to get frustrated. I was frustrated. Heck, I remember coming out of Arena League in college, and I went to my high school staff that, again, Coach Matt Durgan hired me for, and I was the lowest guy on the totem pole, basically, and I was kind of pissed about it. Felt, like, man, why is this guy ahead of me? He never went to the level I went to.
Right. Yeah.
And, Coach Durgan, being the great coach that he is, brought me in the office and said, look here, you got to earn this, man. Like, it don't matter what you did on the field. This is totally different. Like, that has nothing to do with this. And he was right. Like, it doesn't. Like, I've seen plenty of guys that were terrible coaches that played in the NFL.
Right.
And I've seen plenty of guys that never played a snap of football that became great football coaches. That has no bearing on it either. You would like to have a guy that has played before, but you don't have to have played before to be a coach. That's what a lot of people get wrong. Heck, some of the best coaches all time, Bill Belichick, Bobby Bowden, all these guys, none of them, played high school football even. So, that's not always the case, but you do got to earn your time and learn. And the reason you got to earn your time is you got to learn your positions, and it takes time for that. You ain't got to learn it in 1 year or 2 years. Heck, I still learn new things every year, and I'm on like I said, going on year 24, and I still learn new things, new ways to do things. So, and that's the other thing. If you're a young guy, keep learning. Like, go to different clinics, go to different. Last year, before the season, I went up to Muskegon, Michigan, and met with their coaches. It's the winningest high school program in America. And that was, eye-opening to see what they do, how hard they work. And, I even came back and told our guys about it. Like, look, we work hard, but those guys work even harder. They don't get a day off. They're in there Saturday and Sunday working and practicing and getting after it. So, that was a whole different level that you get to see, and they do things schematically different. So it's important to always learn and always go different places to get a different view.